That night, the door creaked as she stepped closer, too close. My heart pounded knowing there was no turning back now. Her touch lingered, electrifying and forbidden. This wasn't a joke. It wasn't a game. What we were about to do would change everything, and neither of us could stop it. I always knew my sister, Lily, had one of those friends who could light up any room with her presence. Tara with her easy laugh, her infectious energy, and the way she carried herself. Effortlessly cool, confident, and always the center of attention. I'd known her since childhood, but over the years, she'd gone from being my sister's energetic best friend to someone I couldn't help but notice in a different way. It wasn't something I ever admitted to myself at first. How could I? She was my sister's best friend, and I knew better than to cross that line. But tonight, as the two of us found ourselves alone at my apartment, with Lily out with her boyfriend, the air between Tara and me felt charged in a way I hadn't experienced before. It had started like any other evening. Tara had come over to hang out, just like she always did when Lily was away. A few drinks, some music, and the comfort of good company. The apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of the city outside and the faint pulse of a song playing low in the background. "So, what's been going on with you lately?" Tara asked, leaning back on the couch, her legs stretched out and her arms behind her head. I paused for a moment, glancing at her. She looked carefree, as usual, in a loose black tank top and faded jeans. Her dark hair fell in waves around her shoulders and her hazel eyes shone with a playful spark, but tonight something about her seemed different. There was a subtle change in her energy, a calmness mixed with an undeniable tension I couldn't quite put my finger on. "Oh, I replied, trying to keep my voice casual as I swirled the drink in my hand. "Just the usual. Work. Life. I've been keeping busy." Tara gave me a knowing smile. She always had that way of seeing right through me, like she knew what I was thinking before I even said it. "You sure you're doing okay? You seem a little distracted," she said, arching a brow as she studied me intently. I quickly looked away, pretending to focus on the glass in my hand. My heart fluttered nervously in my chest. Was she sensing it? The way I couldn't seem to stop glancing at her whenever she wasn't looking. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, a passing thought, a fleeting attraction. But tonight, it felt like something more. "I'm fine," I said, too quickly. "Just tired." Tara didn't respond immediately. Instead, she took a sip from her own drink, her eyes lingering on me for a second longer than usual. There was a quiet intensity between us that hadn't been there before, like the space in the room had narrowed, leaving only the two of us. "I think you're lying," she said softly, a teasing grin tugging at her lips. "You always do this when you're nervous. You've been quiet all night." I felt my cheeks flush, my heart racing as she leaned in closer, her hand resting on the arm of the couch next to mine. The familiar scent of her perfume, a mix of vanilla and something sweet, filled my senses, and I swallowed hard, trying to calm the sudden rush of emotions coursing through me. "I'm not nervous," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't true, though. I was nervous. I was nervous in a way I hadn't been in years, and it was because of her. There was a long, charged silence between us before Tara let out a soft laugh. "You're so easy to read. You know that?" I forced myself to laugh too, trying to brush off the awkwardness that was creeping in. "I guess I'm an open book." Tara's smile softened, and for the first time that night, I noticed a subtle shift in her eyes, a look that seemed to linger a bit too long. Her gaze dropped to my lips, and my stomach tightened. My breath hitched in my throat, and I quickly turned away, not trusting myself to look at her for too long. She was my sister's best friend. She'd always been untouchable, off limits, and the last thing I wanted to do was complicate our friendship with anything more. But then, Tara did something that sent my thoughts spinning. Without warning, she placed her hand gently on mine. Her touch was warm, almost deliberate, and I could feel the faint tremor in my fingertips as she lightly traced circles on the back of my hand. Her touch was soft but insistent, as if she was trying to communicate something without words. I looked down at our hands, frozen for a moment. When I finally looked back up at her, she was staring at me with an intensity that took my breath away. "I've always thought you were kind of interesting," Tara said, her voice low, almost a whisper. In a good way, though. My heart hammered in my chest. Was she teasing me? Or was there something more to her words? Something I wasn't ready to hear? Before I could respond, she leaned a little closer, her face only inches from mine. I could feel the heat radiating from her, the tension between us thickening with every passing second. I've always wondered what it would be like. To be with you, she murmured, her lips brushing against my ear. I froze, my mind reeling as her words hit me like a jolt of electricity. My pulse quickened, and the world seemed to blur for a moment. This couldn't be real. This wasn't happening, not with Tara, not with my sister's best friend. But then her lips were on mine. The kiss was tentative at first, a soft exploration, like she was testing the waters. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to pull away, to stop this before it went any further. But another part of me, the part I'd been hiding for so long, wanted more. I let her deepen the kiss, my body responding before my mind could catch up. Her lips were warm and sweet, and as her hand slid from mine to the back of my neck, I couldn't help but melt into her touch. What was I doing? My mind screamed at me to stop, to push her away, but my body was telling me something else entirely. Something I couldn't ignore. I never imagined Tara's kiss would feel so overwhelming. It was a simple gesture, just a brush of her lips against mine. But the intensity of it left me breathless. When we finally pulled away, I could feel the weight of her gaze on me, like she was waiting for me to say something, anything. My heart was pounding in my chest, my body still tingling from the touch. I stared at her, trying to collect my thoughts, but the air between us felt thick, heavier than it had been just minutes before. It was as if the walls had closed in, leaving just the two of us suspended in a moment neither of us could escape. Tara's eyes searched mine, her expression unreadable. "I didn't think you'd kiss me back," she said quietly, almost as if she were surprised. Her voice was laced with something I couldn't quite place. Curiosity? Desire? I swallowed hard, still processing the fact that this was happening. "Tara, She raised a hand to stop me, her finger lightly brushing my lips. "Don't say anything," she whispered, her voice low and commanding. "We don't have to talk about it." Not yet. Her words sent a shiver down my spine, and I nodded, unsure of how to proceed. What was I supposed to say? Was I supposed to act like nothing had happened? Like this was just some passing moment? But it wasn't. It felt too real, too intense. Tara leaned back slightly, her hand still resting on my knee. The touch was casual enough, but the weight of it was anything but. She was so close to me now, our bodies inches apart. I could feel the heat radiating off her, the tension building with every beat of my heart. "You don't have to be nervous, you know," she said softly, her eyes flickering over my face. "We don't have to rush. We can just see where this goes." I wasn't sure what she meant by that, but the way she said it made my stomach flutter with excitement. I wanted to tell her that I was more than just nervous. I was terrified. But at the same time, a part of me wanted to throw caution to the wind and dive in head first. As if sensing my inner conflict, Tara's hand moved slowly up my thigh, a gentle, almost teasing touch that sent sparks through my skin. I froze, not sure how to react. It wasn't like I didn't want it. God, I wanted it. I could feel the heat pulling low in my belly, the ache between my legs growing with every second that passed. "Tara," I whispered, barely able to form words. "We can't do this." "It's wrong." She didn't say anything right away. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, her fingers tracing small circles along the fabric of my jeans. "Why is it wrong?" she asked, her voice a little more playful now, but still low and soothing. "We're both adults, and you've wanted this just as much as I have." I opened my mouth to protest, but the words caught in my throat. How did she know? How could she possibly know? Maybe she didn't, but then again, maybe she did. Maybe she had seen it in the way I looked at her, the way I could never quite keep my eyes off her whenever she was around. I could feel the tension between us building to an almost unbearable level. The air was thick with unspoken words, with desires neither of us was brave enough to voice. I wanted to run away, to escape this moment before it went any further, but at the same time, a part of me, no, all of me, wanted to lean into it, to give into the pull that had been building for so long. Her fingers gently brushed against my skin, and I felt a surge of heat flood my body. I was no longer thinking clearly, no longer trying to keep things in check. All I could focus on was the way her touch made me feel, the way she made me feel. Slowly, she moved closer, her lips hovering near my ear. "You're not scared, are you?" she whispered, her breath hot against my skin. I closed my eyes, my breath coming faster as my pulse quickened. I don't know." "I think you do," Tara murmured, her lips brushing my earlobe. You're just afraid of what comes next." I didn't have an answer. I was too lost in the sensation of her lips, her touch, her proximity. It was like I was on the edge of something I couldn't pull myself back from, but at the same time, I didn't want to. The air between us was thick with desire, and I could feel it radiating off her. I could feel the way she was pulling me in, like she knew exactly how to keep me on the edge, how to make me want more without ever pushing me too far. Tara's hand slid higher, just brushing the waistband of my jeans. A shiver ran through me, my entire body reacting to her touch. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, the anticipation gnawing at me like a hunger I couldn't suppress. "You're thinking too much," Tara said softly, her lips just inches from mine. "Just let go." I didn't have time to respond before she kissed me again, her lips crashing against mine with an urgency that took me by surprise. This wasn't the soft, tentative kiss from earlier. This was full of need, full of hunger. She was demanding, but not in a way that made me feel uncomfortable. More like she was inviting me to join her in this moment of wild, forbidden desire. The kiss deepened, and all I could think about was how much I wanted more. My hands moved instinctively to her body, pulling her closer, feeling the warmth of her skin under my fingertips. I was losing myself in her touch, in the way she made me feel. And when I heard the soft sound of my sister's voice from the other room, just a faint murmur in her sleep, I realized, with a jolt, how close we were to crossing a line that could never be uncrossed, but I couldn't stop now. I didn't want to. I never thought this would be just the beginning. But as Tara's lips moved down my neck, I realized there was no turning back. The kiss seemed to last forever. Tara's lips were soft but insistent, coaxing mine into a rhythm I wasn't sure I was ready for, but desperately craved all the same. I could feel her hands on my skin, sliding over the thin fabric of my shirt, sending jolts of heat through me. Every movement, every brush of her fingers made my pulse race faster, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I wanted to pull away, to stop myself before it went too far. I knew this was a line I shouldn't cross, but the heat between us was undeniable, and my body was betraying my thoughts. I could feel myself getting lost in the sensation of her touch, each one more electrifying than the last, and I couldn't find the strength to stop. "Tara," I whispered against her lips, my voice barely audible. It sounded more like a plea than a warning. "We shouldn't be doing this." But her response wasn't to pull away. Instead, she pressed her body closer to mine, her chest rising and falling with every breath, her lips trailing a path down my neck. The sensation of her soft lips against my skin made my entire body shiver with desire. "Why not?" Tara asked, her voice hushed, full of a dangerous kind of confidence. She pulled back just enough to meet my eyes, her fingers grazing over the exposed skin of my collarbone. "You're not the only one who's wanted this. You know." Her words sent a rush of warmth flooding through me. She had wanted this? But why didn't I see it before? How could I have missed something so obvious? Maybe it wasn't just me who had been carrying around this hidden longing. Maybe this moment, this reckless desire, was something we both had been silently craving for a long time. Her hands were still moving over my body, now slipping underneath the hem of my shirt, caressing the smooth skin of my stomach. I could feel her fingers trembling slightly, a mixture of impatience and desire. It was too much. My thoughts were jumbled, my body pulsing with a need I hadn't realized was so overwhelming. Before I could stop myself, I found my own hands moving toward her, tugging at the hem of her shirt, wanting to feel her skin, to understand the feel of her body against mine. I hadn't realized until this very moment how much I wanted her, how much I had always wanted her. But this wasn't a simple crush. This was something deep and dangerous, something I couldn't deny anymore. Her shirt came off easily, and she leaned into me, her bare skin brushing against mine, sending another shock wave of desire through me. She was everything I had imagined, and more. Her body firm but soft in all the right places, her skin smooth and warm against mine. "Tara," I gasped, the word barely escaping me as her hands moved to the button of my jeans, her fingertips grazing the sensitive skin just below my navel. "What are we doing?" "I'm not sure," she murmured, her lips curling into a slow, seductive smile. "But I know I don't want to stop." I felt the cool air on my exposed skin as she slowly undid the button of my jeans, her fingers brushing against the waistband. My breath hitched in my throat, my mind screaming at me to stop, but my body was already beyond the point of no return. Her hands slid down my legs, lifting my jeans just enough for her to get closer to me. Every nerve in my body was on fire. The weight of her gaze, the heat of her touch, it was like nothing I had ever experienced before. I wanted to pull away, to force myself to stop, but at the same time, every part of me was pulling her in, urging her to take me further into the abyss. Tara, we can't. My voice was shaky, the words unsteady as I tried to find some semblance of control, but she silenced me with a kiss, a deep, hungry kiss that stole any remaining resolve I had. Her hands moved faster now, sliding over my skin with purpose, and before I could even process what was happening, her lips were trailing down my neck, her body pressing into mine with a force that left me breathless. I felt exposed, vulnerable. But there was something thrilling about it, something intoxicating about the way she was making me feel. I was no longer the cautious, reserved woman who had always held back. I was unraveling under her touch, letting go of everything I thought I knew about boundaries and right and wrong. And as her hands slid beneath the waistband of my underwear, the world outside this moment seemed to disappear. There was only the two of us, only the feeling of her body against mine, her fingers exploring, her lips tasting, her touch demanding. I wanted to push her away, to tell her this was wrong, to remind her of the sister I loved, the one who trusted us both. But everything in me screamed not to stop, not when Tara was the one who had ignited this fire, who was now feeding the flames with every kiss, every touch. Tell me to stop, and I will. Tara whispered, her lips brushing against my ear, sending a wave of heat through my entire body. Just say the word. But I couldn't. The word didn't come. My hands found her body again, pulling her closer, feeling the heat of her skin, the way her body arched against mine. My thoughts were a jumble of confusion, of guilt, of desire, and I couldn't seem to separate one from the other. Instead, I gave in. And as her lips found mine once again, I realized this was more than just a stolen moment. This was a beginning I wasn't sure I was ready for, but one that had already spiraled out of control. I never thought this would happen, not with Tara, not like this. But as I let myself melt into her embrace, I realized there was no going back. I was already in too deep. There was no way out now, no way to undo what had already been done. Tara's touch, her lips, the way she made me feel, it had consumed me. My mind screamed at me to stop, but my body had already betrayed me. Responding to her in ways I couldn't control, the room was filled with the sound of our hurried breathing, our bodies moving in synchrony, both of us desperate for something we couldn't quite put into words. My hands roamed over her smooth skin, feeling the soft curves of her body, and I couldn't help but wonder how we had arrived at this moment. Tara, my sister's best friend, had become more than just someone I had admired from afar. She was now someone I couldn't escape from, someone whose touch I craved with a hunger I couldn't ignore. Her lips traveled from my neck to my chest, planting soft, fiery kisses along the way. Each one sent waves of heat through me, the sensation nearly unbearable. I arched my back, giving her more access, unable to suppress the moan that escaped me when her lips brushed against the sensitive skin near my collarbone. Tara. My voice was shaky, barely a whisper, but it held the weight of everything I was feeling, the desire, the guilt, the fear. What if someone finds out? She pulled back, just enough to meet my gaze, her lips wet and flushed from our kisses. Her eyes were dark with desire, but there was something else there too, something I couldn't quite understand. Was it regret? Was she feeling the same fear I was? But she didn't hesitate. She placed a finger against my lips, silencing my thoughts. Shh, she murmured. No one will know. Not if we don't want them to. Her words sent a shiver down my spine. The idea of keeping this a secret, of hiding our desire from everyone else, felt like both an exhilarating challenge and a terrifying risk. I had never done anything like this before. I had never crossed a line like this. But with Tara, it felt impossible to stop. She leaned down again, kissing me with an intensity that left no room for hesitation. Her hands were everywhere, pulling me closer, guiding me, coaxing me into a deeper connection I wasn't sure I was ready for but couldn't resist. I had always thought of myself as the more cautious one, the one who played by the rules. But in this moment, I had lost all sense of control. The boundaries between right and wrong, family and desire, had all blurred into something more primal, more real than anything I'd ever known. Her hands were moving lower now, sliding beneath the waistband of my underwear once more, sending an electric shock through my body. My breath caught in my throat and I gripped her shoulders, trying to steady myself, trying to fight the overwhelming rush of emotions and sensations. I need you, Tara said in a voice that was almost a growl. She didn't need to say anything else. The urgency in her tone, the way she kissed me like she was starved for more, told me everything I needed to know. I could feel the tension building between us, the air thick with desire. Every part of me was telling me to stop, to pull away, but every part of me also wanted to surrender completely. It wasn't just about physical attraction anymore. There was something deeper, something more visceral at play. This was about being wanted, about being desired in a way that made everything else fade away. Before I knew it, she was guiding me onto the bed, her movements confident and sure. She didn't ask for permission, she didn't need to. The way she was looking at me like I was the only thing in the world made me forget everything else. My sister, the consequences, the guilt. It all melted away in the heat of the moment. As I lay back on the bed, Tara's hands moved with purpose, undressing me with a quiet intensity that had my heart racing. I couldn't look away from her, couldn't tear my eyes from the way she moved, the way she looked at me as if I was the only thing she wanted in that moment. She was so sure, so confident in a way that made me feel both vulnerable and alive. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to steady my breathing, trying to make sense of the whirlwind I was in. But when I opened them again, Tara was leaning over me, her body hovering above mine, her lips inches from my ear. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice a low, breathless whisper. There was no mockery in her tone, no teasing. It was a genuine question, a question that held more weight than any words I had ever heard before. She was giving me a choice, letting me take control in this moment, but I knew the answer. I knew it before I could even say it. Yes, I breathed out, the word barely a whisper, but it was everything I felt in that moment. I wanted her. I wanted this. And I couldn't fight it any longer. With a soft, satisfied smile, Tara leaned down, capturing my lips once more in a kiss that was as desperate as it was tender. Her body pressed against mine, and in that moment, everything else faded away. The guilt, the fear, the consequences. It was just us, in a world of our own making, driven by an uncontrollable desire that neither of us could deny. Tara's hands moved lower, and my breath hitched as she touched me in places I had only ever dreamed of being touched. The sensations were overwhelming, leaving me breathless and gasping for air. My body was on fire, every nerve alive and buzzing with the intensity of her touch. I wasn't sure how we'd gotten here, but I knew I wasn't ready to stop. Not yet. I thought I was ready for anything, but as Tara's hands moved over my body, I realized there was no turning back now. The room was thick with silence after everything had happened. Tara and I lay together, our bodies still tangled, breathing heavily. The pulse of the moment was still reverberating through me, her touch, her kiss, the intensity of it all. My skin burned where she had touched me, and my heart was racing with emotions I couldn't quite name. Tara shifted beside me, and I turned to face her. She was looking up at the ceiling, her fingers tracing small patterns on my arm. I couldn't read her expression, but something about the stillness between us felt different now. It felt heavier. I opened my mouth, but the words caught in my throat. I wasn't sure how to ask the question that had been pressing at the back of my mind since the moment we kissed. My voice came out quieter than I intended. "What now?" Tara didn't immediately answer. She let out a breath, her hands still moving absent-mindedly over my skin. I watched her, waiting for her to speak, but she seemed lost in her thoughts, her eyes far away. The uncertainty in the air was suffocating, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd crossed a line that was never meant to be crossed. Finally, she turned her head to look at me. "I don't know," she said, her voice soft. "I didn't think it would feel like this." I bit my lip, trying to push down the sudden knot of panic rising in my chest. "Do you regret it?" I whispered before I could stop myself. The fear in my chest made my voice tremble. The thought of her regretting it, of this being a mistake, was too much to bear. She met my gaze, her eyes darker than I'd ever seen them, and I could feel my heart hammering in my chest. "No," she said firmly. "I don't regret it, but I didn't think it would change everything." Her words hit me harder than I expected. She was right. It had changed everything. The desire between us had been building for so long, but I never imagined it would lead to something so irreversible. I could still feel the weight of it, the physical closeness, the intimacy, but now there was a heaviness hanging in the air that I couldn't ignore. I shifted uncomfortably beside her, trying to collect my thoughts. "It has, hasn't it?" I asked quietly, the reality of what we had just done sinking in. Tara looked down, her fingers brushing over the sheets between us. Her gaze softened, but there was a flicker of something. Guilt, maybe? Fear? I don't know what to do now. We can't pretend like this didn't happen. Her words cut through me like a blade. I wanted to pretend, wanted to bury it, to say it was just one mistake that would never happen again. But I knew deep down it wasn't that simple. I couldn't pretend I hadn't felt what I had felt, and neither could she. I don't want to pretend, I said, my voice more confident now. I wasn't sure if I meant it or if I just wanted to believe it was true. But what if we've ruined everything? Tara looked at me, her expression hardening. We can't undo it, she said simply. We just have to figure out what comes next. The weight of her words settled over me, and for a moment, all I could do was breathe, trying to process everything. What came next? What could we do? We had crossed a line, and now we had to live with the consequences, whatever they might be. I didn't have an answer. Neither of us did. We were both left in the aftermath, unsure of how to move forward, but knowing one thing for certain, everything had changed. I had no idea what was next, but as I stared at Tara, I realized this was only the beginning. I never thought I'd be here, caught between guilt and desire, trapped by a line I never should have crossed. What we shared was forbidden, and now it's too late to take it back. The weight of what we've done lingers, heavy in the silence between us, but part of me still craves more. What are we now? Just a mistake in the shadows, or something deeper that neither of us can walk away from? I don't know where this will lead, but the question haunts me. What do you think? Leave a comment and share your thoughts.